Well, there's a spider for you just in time for Halloween. I'm Todd Banner. Welcome to my channel. So as the title said, I was hiking through Thatcher Woods, our local forest preserve, about a month ago one morning, and I saw something glinting in the sunlight, and I walked over, and there was an orb weaver spider weaving her web. And that spider is a spined microthena, which is a spider native to the United States, I think mostly eastern United States, but unusual looking. Got those spines, almost tropical looking. And from midsummer on into early fall, the female weaves a web every day, according to what I looked up. And I was lucky enough that she was actually in the process of weaving her web. So I took that video with my Lumix G9, which I'm filming on right now, and the Lumix 100-300. But I used two features that for video that are in the latest Lumix cameras, I think starting with the GH5. At least one of them starting with the GH5. Not sure about the other. So the first one would be IS Lock. And what IS Lock is a feature that's available when you're shooting video that essentially uses the in-body stabilization system, but combined with the actual image. So essentially what it's doing is it's using the image to help stabilize the sensor. Now it doesn't work for moving subjects very well, because what will happen is if you're trying to pan with something that's moving fairly rapidly, it's going to jerk. So you get this really jerky footage, which I discovered quite by accident, looked it up and went, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The other feature that I used is a feature called extended teleconverter. So the 100-300 close focusing distance is 4.9 feet, about 1.5 meters, and even that wasn't quite close enough. So the extended teleconverter setting essentially crops, but here's the thing. On the G9, it does, and I shot this in 4K, should mention that, but the G9 does full width of the sensor 4K, so it uses the whole width of the sensor, and of course crops from the top and bottom for the 16:9 aspect ratio for video. But because of that, you're essentially downsampling from all those pixels, and the G9's processor is fast enough to be able to do that on the fly. But what the extended teleconverter setting does is it actually crops in to an 8 megapixel frame, because a 4K frame is 8 megapixels. So it essentially crops down to a 1-to-1 pixel dimension for a 4K frame. So that results in extra telephoto. So both of these features were something that came in handy for videoing the orb weaver spider. Now the IS Lock, even with that, what I did was I braced myself on a tree that happened to be nearby, luckily, because I didn't bring my tripod. But even if you have a little residual jerkiness, it's easy enough. Even iMovie has image stabilization and has a function that you can do in editing. So it works quite well. Now the G95, which is my backup body, does have the IS Lock function. And unfortunately, the extended teleconverter setting only works really with regular HD 1080p, because the G95 already has a 4K crop. So it crops about 1.25x to get a 4K frame. And probably because I didn't put as powerful a processor in here to be able to downsample the full width of the frame. So you always have a 4K crop, which by the way doesn't bother me. I mean, it turns your 12 millimeter, 24 millimeter equivalent full frame to 15 millimeters, 30 millimeters. That doesn't bother me, because modern phones shoot wide angle 4K. So if I need wide angle and I'm shooting with my G95, I use my phone for the wide angle stuff. The extended teleconverter function will work with 1080p because that's a 2 megapixel frame, so it works fine on this camera. So what I've done is I find those settings so useful that I've mapped them to the function buttons. On the G9, what I've done is I've mapped them to the two front buttons. So the top button I have mapped to the IS lock, and the bottom button I have the extended teleconverter. And on the G9, I pretty much just use the IS lock using the button that's right on the shoulder dial. I like that button. G9 doesn't have it. It's kind of weird. At any rate, these are very useful. Put up some more footage here where I used the IS lock, not the extended teleconverter, to video a goldfinch in our backyard. So as I've mentioned before, we have a native wildflower garden, and towards the end of the summer into fall, those native plants have flowered and are starting to go to seed. And North American goldfinches are seed eaters. In fact, it's very interesting. We see them before the plants have gone to seed, but it's like they're scoping things out. It's like they want to know where all the plants are so that when they do go to seed, they can hit those and eat the seeds. Of course, they'll eat insects too. So in the earlier part of the summer, they're eating a lot of insects. And I think it's a little bit of a downside to this time of year with goldfinches is that the males start to molt. So in the spring and into the summer, they are brilliant yellow gold. But by late summer, the males have started to molt into their winter brown coat, which is very similar to the female. So they're not quite as stunning. So unfortunately, this guy that I videoed is not real bright. But I've been shooting a lot more video because ever since joining Wirestock, they accept video, and I have shot, really only had one video that they did not accept. They've accepted everything that I have submitted except for one. And so I also found this video, just as an example of what I was able to do with just the GX85 and the 45 to 150. This is a raccoon that visited our yard. This is 2018, and pretty sure I just opened the window really slowly so I didn't spook it, and braced the camera on just the bottom of the window, and was able to get some pretty nice footage of this raccoon with her baby. This was shot in just regular 1080p HD. So anyway, so the take home is that become familiar with those settings, because if you're shooting video, they're going to be really useful to you. And the ability to get just almost rock solid video without using a tripod is kind of a really big deal, because I don't always want to take a tripod with me. It's just a thing. Anyway, I hope this was useful, interesting to you. If it was, please hit that like button. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. I respond as soon as I can to those. I'm Todd Banner, and I will see you next time.